stick.
And bits that some of you have been busy cleaning, if they see any of you walking on those areas that are cleaned, you will get something thrown at you, either abuse or a rock. Alright? So there's certain things, so stay on the walkway on the side, we will show you which routes to follow, but just be careful, watch your footing, it's not a race, but be careful. We've got security on site, so there's a camera on the pole there, which you'll no doubt see swivelling round and keeping you in their beady eye. Just to give you an idea, I camp on site, and at night when it gets dark, if I'm walking around, it's like the Mysterons. This light comes on and the camera follows you up, and it's very unnerving. It doesn't have a voice, the Mysterons, but it does follow me. So just keep an eye on where you're walking, and you'll be fine. But it's not the best to do that before we go in. All right?
That's right, don't fall in the pit.
See where your father's been digging. Oh, he's a big
Absolutely.
hole that he's been hiding in.
Yeah.
Coins.
Yeah.
The silver coin.
This one?
No,
isn't it?
never found a silver one. I'm the first one to find silver.
Were you?
No, not yet, I am.
Right, so look.
He's going to be here till Christmas, isn't he?
Yes.
He'll sit in front of the lorries. You're not going to let him dig until you find it.
Yeah, so a big digger with a big claw will come and do this.
Right.
I bet there'll be some bones.
Wow, there's lots of bones around. Okay. That's it, turn around.
That's been very strange.
And they all get in.
Okay. Right. Listen. He's going to tell us.
Yeah. Right, reason for start, well, first of all, the reason we're doing this excavation is the site is going to be developed. It was bought by the County Council from Whitworths. The site was at that stage a farm that wasn't economic. The County Council bought it and spent many years trying to work out what to do. Sarah, who's always very shy about it, secured a grant and has managed to get the funding to do the work. So it's her fault, all right? Now, what we're doing is the development is going to include an improved road down to the house and new services. And the trench coming down here is, by its rather obvious shape, the shape of the road. All right, so we're clearing the archaeology in the areas where otherwise it's going to be destroyed. We've been excavating for the last 10 days on this piece, but we carried out some work through there over the Maybank holiday. So we've had people on site. Now, it's one of those things that both Sarah and I firmly believe is people should get involved in archaeology. I started in archaeology when I was at school, and I used to skive off school to go digging. I can't think of anything I enjoy doing.
We don't leave school.
I'll talk to you about it later. But I started digging when I was still at school because I loved doing it, I enjoyed it. And it's become, because of the nature of archaeology, increasingly difficult for amateurs and volunteers to take part. So we've been a strong believer from the start of this project that we should get as many people involved in archaeology as possible. One year we carried out all the archaeology with school children under the age of 12.
Yeah, that was interesting.
I think that's the word I would have used. Another year we used students from Leicester University. Anybody here from Leicester University? Any graduates of Leicester University? No, good, they were useless. That same year had a week when we used people from one of the local archaeology societies, HIFARS, and they were actually really useful. Last year we threw the doors open to the great British public, and we had 70 different people take part over a 2-week period on site, and it was brilliant. And we lifted some of the bodies one year with primary school children from Merchester Primary. They came and had a day on site, and they spent a day lifting Roman skeletons for us. I'd just love to have been a fly on the wall when their parents asked what they'd done that day. My eldest son is now an archaeologist, but when he was at primary school I had to do an exhibition in a quarry. And I took a skeleton home one weekend, and he spent part of his Sunday putting string through the cervical cord of the skeleton so we get all the vertebrae in the right order. And on the Monday, as is the want, the teachers went round the class, what did you do over the weekend? And when Adam said, oh, I put string up somebody's backbone, you can imagine. Anyway, so we've tried with all sorts of people, and this year, again, we've got the general public, and what is really good, and those of you that have been digging for me, thank you. what's really good is everybody that has come, whether that's Leslie Ann, who's the local planning archaeologist, whether it's former colleagues of mine working at Molar, and today we had the head of Molar visit us, all these people who work in archaeology professionally have looked at the site and said, looks good. Molar is the Museum of London Archaeology. They took over the archaeology unit in Northampton. All right? So it's a professional archaeology unit. And so professionals that have visited the site can say that the work's been done, looks on the button. And I think that's true. So thank you all of those who have helped us dig. Now, that's that side of things. What do we got? We'll get to the medieval in a bit.
Come on, more medieval.
Not yet. Sadly, there's too much medieval. Here we have the top of a Roman well. Isn't it beautiful? It's almost certainly Roman. All right, we will. No, the medieval settlement is down the bottom of the slope. So, as you'll see when we get down there. Just to show you the problems, however, in addition to the Roman well, we have. Can you see this streak here, or that streak there, or that streak there, or that one there? And looking down, can you see those lines of light stones? They're wheel ruts from about 200 years ago. So rubbish roads and tracks are nothing new. And Frances has personally and lovingly excavated the trench across the wheel ruts there. And she hasn't moaned at all.
No, it's every 5 minutes.
Now basically, so we have a Roman well, but we have wheel ruts that are only a couple of 100 years old. This site has bits of everything. So, you know, just so you realise, it's a real pick and mix. So if we wander down, you'll see just by the side of the book, this hole and the next hole down, they're sections through a Roman ditch. Sorry, I had to mention it was Roman. And to show you what we're getting out of things like this, I have a small teaching prop here.
It's brilliant.
We had a couple of people digging today, and this large rim from a big storage jar, Roman storage jar, came out the ground. So this is the sort of thing that would have been a bit like a big sack for holding produce, and you can see it's decorated with scored lines, scratched in lines, and so on. Yeah? Do you want to hold it? Let's have a look.
No, mine are down there.
So that pot's about 1800 years old. So don't drop it. Well, there we go. And this, one of the things about pots like this is we can date them. One of the things archaeologists look for is stuff, because stuff changes. If you ever look at old photographs, you look at the photographs, see what cars people are driving, what hairstyles, what clothes they're wearing, and you'll instantly know whether it's the 1920s, the 1960s, the 1980s, or whatever. You can bracket the date. It's the same with shapes of pottery. It changes through time. So as an archaeologist, you're looking at the shape of the rim or the shape of the pot, how big it is, what it's made. So as an archaeologist, things like that are really key. So finding pottery in ditches like this and the one down there gives us a date. And that's one of the key things that we want. All right? So if we carry on down.
Ready?
No, my ruts.
Is one of your pits coming up?
Yeah, it's not. No, this one.
Is that your pit?
No, I didn't do any of these ones. We're the other side.
What, so your pit's on what side?
A little one on that side and another one just down there. You see the corner? You see that edge over there? It's just
When
there.
we come up to it.
Yeah.
That's it, lovely.
Do you think it'll show the Roman penny?
Might do.
Nobody's asked a question yet. I'm feeling quite lucky. Nobody's thrown anything at me. No
Saving
question.
them up.
Ah. I'll let Sarah escort you all back then. Right, the reason for stopping at this point is if you look, you'll see how there is quite a slope from my motorhome right the way down to the house. Well, when they made this into a nice gentrified setup, their road goes all the way up to what was the Turnpike Road is now the A45. When it rains, of course, the rain and the water collects and comes flowing down and probably floods their front room. What a clever idea. Now, what we think they did is dug this wide, shallow drain. You can see the edge of the grey here, coming through at this point, like that. And you can see it goes all the way over to around here. All right, this big wide feature we think is just to catch the water as it runs down there. And it was stopped it carrying on down to the house. Whether it worked, we don't know. But, you know, it seems to be a good idea, a sort of ditch to catch the water and stop it flooding down to the house. We've had various finds out of it. Lots and lots of Roman pottery, but then there is so much Roman pottery everywhere. It is the litter of this site. You can't put a hole in without Roman pottery. There has been a Roman coin found.
Not a silver one though.
But no silver one. I mean, it was only a bronze. There's a little rivalry, you may notice. But we've excavated one section by hand so we can try and understand the layers, and one section we opened with a machine. That took me about 2 minutes. I think we're at about 3 days now. But that looks better. That's beautiful. So this is a drain just to catch the water, and just to show you that I do care about the medieval period. As we move this way, we go from the sort of 18th century drain to a medieval one. This ditch coming through here has medieval pottery in it. Not a great deal, but pieces of pot like that. So this ditch dates to, that piece of pot was from the sort of the late Norman period, but it's coming through. It's a medieval ditch, all right. And this is really where the medieval settlement, the medieval occupation starts. And Sarah will have plenty of medieval from here on down, because rather bizarrely, although that side of the wall we found loads of Roman, this year we found loads of medieval, which has been very sad. It's filled in a big gap in how we understand the site. So we have a medieval ditch anyway, serving much the same purpose as that, but it goes through there, beyond that wall, turns the corner and goes down. You see that far blue tray? That's the return arm of the ditch going along. And it's defining one block of ground. And the return, see that pile of 3 trays? Just beyond that, there is another ditch, another medieval ditch coming out. Now, the reason we're starting to find all these medieval ditches is just over there is the medieval village of Chester-on-the-Water. Probably a hamlet, a small settlement, but it's been hardly understood because it doesn't really feature in most documentary sources. The earliest it appears is 1236. It doesn't make it to the Domesday Book, but archaeologically we're finding evidence that there would have been occupation here at the time the Domesday Book was written. So here we have a series of ditches that almost certainly relate to that settlement. And as we go down, you'll see in the next stage large numbers of pits. Really substantial pits, about that deep. All except one. Yeah, just one that's less than 1 metre deep. The shallow pits we think are the remains of possibly tree holes. It is possible that there was an orchard or something similar in that area. The deep feature Sarah dug, which is why she's being so defensive, but it is only 97 centimetres, it's not 1 metre. And we don't know quite what that was dug for, possibly to extract stone or clay. So if we go down that dip and up the other side and stop and look at the pits.
Get closer. Right,
Why
Billy.
did you mouth your name?
Huh?
Why did you mouth your name?
Mine, I don't know. That's mine there. That one there. Yeah.
Which one are you focusing on?
That
You
one.
can see how shallow most of them are as you come
Careful.
past. They're not very big.
That's it. And that one.
It's getting bigger every day.
That one there.
Which one? That one.
No, not that one. That's a big, deep one.
Who made that?
Be careful. That was the lady who's running the whole big project. And that was my first one over there. On the other side, that one there.
And this is the other ditch going through. So this ditch pairs up with the ditch just over there, which in turn pairs up with the ditch further down.
But that's where I found my blind.
They won't get out, I've locked the gate.
And this here, that bit of
You're captive until I've finished. Now Sarah's gone, she'll talk Romans. Basically, you can see the pits, you can see the ditch here. So this area seems to have a complex of, shallow pits, possibly for trees. Sarah, I locked the gate. All right.
careful, careful, careful.
Now, what we've got beyond this ditch is this line of rubble, which just shows you how complicated the sequence is. This is medieval. This, we think, is a post-medieval soakaway. It's lovely, it's lots of rubble. Till we've dug it, we're not certain. It could be a wall, but I think it's a trench that's been filled with stone to serve the same function as that large ditch up the slope. Stopping the house flooding was one of those key things to this whole site all the way through history. As we go further down,
I think I see the mouse or something in that dip.
Oh, there is.
we have isolated post holes,
Good girl. It's a little mole.
pits, and all sorts of things. For those of you that wonder how an archaeologist sees what he's looking for, I recommend you look at this, where you can see the colour difference.
Where?
This feature here is a trench from that drain pipe. So nothing very old, but it's exactly the same process as how we see features. And so you can see that, and you can see how it's different to the natural around.
This one over here.
What, the one with the big...
This one here with only half of it. This one with a white bit.
Yeah.
That's it. That was my first one there.
Now, the reason for stopping around here, to show you a number of things. First of all, a really impressive feature. In front of me, we have one of those features that you don't normally see. Those of you that will remember, the house caught fire and burnt down a number of years ago. And one of the problems they had when it did burn down was the house was beginning to flap around in the wind. It was falling down. So they brought in a very heavy, substantial crane. And the crane had hydraulic supports to stop it wobbling around. That's where one of the feet from the supports pressed down from the level of the tarmac you're standing on. The crane weighed 100 tonne. So that's what that is. All right, so just wanted to show you, so you have a bit of a concept of that. Now this building dates to the 1660s. Notice I looked to Sarah to be certain. It's modern, it's not Roman. All right,
Lovely, lovely building.
it's beautiful. This building dates to the 1660s and is, a lovely house. But one of the problems we've always had with this site is where were the earlier buildings? And what we've got here is the deserted medieval village lies just the other side of that building in front of us. And so we've always believed that we might find earlier occupation here. And what we found here is the corner of another stone building that predates that one.
Is that what that is?
Yeah. This is lovely,
It was a pile of rubble.
even though it's medieval. This is the corner of another stone building. Now, we don't know its exact date, but if that building dates to the 1600s, it's quite possible this stone building might be of the 1400s, it could be the 1500s. But it's another building, it's another house we didn't know existed until we stripped the ground open to see what there was. The stonework behind me is another soakaway and a drain, so they're relatively modern, they're of the 18th century, all right? Now, that's exciting, all right? This is my excited face. This is another medieval ditch coming through, but the really exciting bit, you'll probably have to shimmy past each other at the bottom end, is just down here. This. You see, it's all in the way you tell it in archaeology. This is really exciting. This may be one wall of a medieval timber hall, either late Saxon or medieval. So this dates to a period when we'd expect there to be occupation, but we've never found it before. There would have been a wooden post in here, a big wooden post in here, another one in here, another one here, and then the bit in between would be filled with wattle and daub. And the shallow pits may indicate that some of the posts rotted down. And what they did is the rotten posts got taken out, but they didn't bother digging a big hole, they just dug a hole big enough to prop the whole building up. But once the building's already there, it's holding itself together a bit. So this is one wall. Now archaeology is all about luck. We've cleaned it, we've found it, we've loved it, but there's no sign of the wall on that side, so the other wall's probably under that. So when the builders come and they put their big machine and clear this area out, hopefully we'll find the other side of this building. All right? So it might not look much, but to me this is exciting. All right?
How wide would you expect it to be
I
from
would
there
expect
to there?
the other wall for this building to be about here.
Is that all?
Yes. Because
narrow?
the most not that narrow, the most expensive timbers are the roof ones, and it's length. So if the further you get, the wider your span, the more expensive and harder to get those timbers. So what you find with these is they're normally quite, not very wide at
Not
all.
big at all.
Sort of 3-4 metres is quite average.
The conservatory's that size.
Well, that's why we live in the modern age.
Medieval.
Anyway, so those of you who haven't seen it, as some of you pass going back, come and have a look. It is quite important, quite interesting.
You imagine medieval, huge.
Yeah. It does make
The plans for the development of the site, you're now looking at the house, which is literally an empty shell because it was burnt down in May 2010. But we've put a new roof on it, as some of you will be aware. We sort of precariously balanced it all together. And I've sort of pointed out to you because the bottom floor of the house will be where you'll be able to get your tea and cake. So this is the most important bit of the site as far as tea and cake. Hot chocolate too, I hope. Hot chocolate, would that be better than tea?
And ice creams.
We'll do hot chocolate as well then. Okay, so, and they'll be able to go into the garden and have a wonderful view over the Nen Valley. So that's something that we're really keen on. And the toilets, I said there are two important things, didn't I? That tea and shop and toilets. The toilets will be in the barns just over the other side. So we're hoping this area will be really a hive of activity. So we're going to have, in this wonderful threshing barn, which is a 17th century threshing barn, we're going to have a conference community training centre and also lease that out for corporate dinners and functions. So if any of you are members of community organisations that are looking for a place to have events, then we'll be able to offer that very, very shortly. So we've got the wonderful threshing barn, and then the next courtyard up, we'll have the spaces where we've got classroom spaces for students to come and learn about the history and heritage of the county, and hopefully then come out and do some digging on site. So the idea is that you might bring your school, Urchester Primary School, might come out to the site in the classroom, be taught about the site, and then have a go at doing the troweling or cleaning of some of the archaeology. That would be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, you all want to do that. So we've got that in the sort of upper courtyard. We've also got, the nasty barn at the top that Ian ignored is our sort of modern 20th century Atco barn, and we're going to literally take that down and build an archaeological resource centre, which is where all the finds from excavations like this will be stored safely and made accessible for people